You don't get out of it now, you two. You have to come and... Are we sitting on the sofa or are we sitting in these chairs?
Oh, no, can I have the comfy chair?
Which one?
I want the green one.
There you go. So I was too late to ever say this. Lauren was straight in there.
Yeah, I want one.
There you go.
Hello.
I have to sit next to you. The same height when we sat down. You must have short legs. Hmm. It's quite close, isn't it? Anyway, right, so this morning, we're talking about stories. Obviously, this morning's got a whole different feel to we thought it would. And I think that story...
Not going to cry again.
You probably will at some point.
I will.
That's the whole story thing. You know, we talked about if you've come in late, probably people who kind of filled you in. We've sadly lost Mick this morning. He's been a big, quiet part of our church for a long time. But we know his story comes to a new chapter this morning. So it's not an end to that story. And we know that he is... You know, he's in heaven now. He's with his Father. He's with his Heavenly Father. And that's just that next part of that amazing story that he's part of. But this morning, we're here. We still go on, and the work of the church and the kingdom still goes on, and testimony still goes on. So we're going to share some time talking to you guys. Just introduce yourselves for people who don't know you.
Hello. I'm Lauren. I hate being on stage. It's my fun fact
Excellent.
about me.
Yeah, you can give her a
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Is your microphone on? This is microphone unmuted, Malachi.
Hello.
Excellent. Go on, tell us again for those who didn't
Hello,
know.
everybody. I'm Simon. No fun facts or anything, but just happy to be here.
Yeah. Are you keeping him quiet on purpose, Malachi, there? Or are you just... No, okay. Right, there we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about your stories. I was thinking it's probably a good place to start is telling us about kind of like, you know, you've got different backgrounds. Lauren is, I mean, it rhymes. Lauren is foreign.
I am.
To England. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, what's your childhood look like, where did you live?
I grew up in a forest in rural Mid Wales.
Was there a house in the forest? Or you just...
Just in the forest.
It didn't feel like it sometimes. It was an old barn.
I thought for a minute you'd got confused with a children's story you'd read when you...
It does sound like a children's story. No, there wasn't.
The Animals of Farthing Wood, if anybody's old enough to
I
remember
grew
that
up in a
one.
very cold old barn in the middle of the forest in Mid Wales.
Excellent. What was the town called?
Well, so I lived in Pontrhy de Groes.
Say that again.
Pontrhy de Groes.
Excellent.
Yes. But my closest town was Aberystwyth.
Aberystwyth. Yeah. Ooh, there you go, a little whoop for Aberystwyth. Si, bit close to home.
Yeah. I'm local, always been here. Grew up born into a Christian family, really. Most of them were Christians, attending church. My nan and granddad ran a church, a big Sunday school. So I was, whether it was forced or bribed, I was there every week.
So the church has always been part of your story in one way or the other. Lauren, for yourself?
My grandparents were both churchgoers, went to separate churches for their entire lives.
I sometimes think that'd be easier if me and Ruth went to separate roads.
I think that about Tom, to be honest.
I don't really, I was joking.
So my nan was Church of England, my granddad was Methodist.
Cool.
So my father grew up between the two Sunday schools, so has a very strange amalgamation of faith. But where I grew up, it's a very spiritual area. So I grew up around a lot of hippies, is how I'm going to phrase that. But there was no faith in the house growing up because my dad's quite shy about his, so it wasn't something we talked about.
Cool. So in terms of church, so you said kind of like whether it was by like you were forced to do or whatever. Like as a kid growing up, what were your feelings about church? What was your...
Well, I suppose the first thing is the reason why I went was football. you know, they used to have a joy club on a Friday night, and that was the thing I think that really, growing up, that's what your attention was to. In terms of church, I was never really anybody that wanted to listen or pay attention to it, or, you know, my nan and granddad were a big influence later on, as you realise, but they would always talk to me about God and church and about sharing, you know, with each other and sharing the Word of God, and I never really took to it. It was never really me. It was something that you always saw the older people doing, not the kids, if you get what I mean. And that's the way, you know, it got to the point for me where, as I got to a certain age, I moved away, got married and had a child, and, you know, I spent so many years never going to church.
Yeah. Lauren, yourself, what were your memories of church as a kid or as a growing up through school and that?
Horrific Welsh hymns in a freezing cold chapel.
We can do the freezing cold here sometimes.
But that was that's all I knew about church. And that Christians seemed to have it all right.
Okay.
Like, it looked all right from the outside. You all seemed pretty happy and chilled, and, like, it looked all right. But I didn't attend church for the first time until I was 19, I think.
Okay. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your story? Kind of, you know, you've ended up here on a Sunday morning at PHCC, sat in what you described as the comfy chair, the green chair I must have.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you got here.
I met Tom at university, and I refused to go to his church for a few weeks. I point blank refused because I was like, no, we're going to go to separate churches, and, you know, I'm not going to get involved, because if I get too involved and we break up, that's going to be awful. And then I came here when you were still doing PHCC TV,
Yep.
but you were showing it in the hub, and I was terrified, really nervous, because Tom had, like, bigged you guys up loads, and, like, you're his church family and raised him. So I was like, oh, just let me meet the family again. But I walked into the hub and was greeted with, like, 4 blankets, a heater pointed at me, and would you like a coffee? And then I just didn't, well, I did leave, but I didn't leave for a bit. A bit?
There you go. Make sure you talk to your mic as well as
I
me.
don't want
It's
to
all
talk to the
right.
mic.
I know you don't like doing this
I
kind
hate
of
my
thing.
voice, though.
Okay. Well, the further you take it away, the louder Malachi will turn it up. So that's how it goes.
Thank you, Malarkey.
So the journey in terms of getting to there, so you say you met Tom. I know it was a very romantic meeting. You met by being in a car park. That's the first time you met Tom. Spent most of your early dates sitting 2 meters apart in a stairwell, I believe,
Yep.
in lockdown.
Yes.
What was your journey of faith to that point? Because by the point you got to that point, would you'd call yourself a Christian at that point?
Yeah, so we actually met because I'd just come out of an Alpha meeting.
Okay.
So I was having my weekly Alpha moan, and Tom went, Alpha? Like Alpha? And I was like, yes. And he went, are you a Christian? I was like, yes. Are you a Christian? Yes. And that was it. That was it then. We just talked about Jesus.
Cool. So you say you were doing an Alpha course. For those of you who don't
Yes.
know, the Alpha course is a huge worldwide course that talks about the basics of Christianity and kind of leads people through. It's a great course. Lauren had a bad experience with it, with her online group. But there you go. How did you get to that point where you were doing Alpha? Tell us what's the start point where you started thinking about or interacting with God?
I wanted to follow Jesus from the first time I sort of went to church, but my heart was, like, I was doing it for the wrong
So you
reasons.
like 19 then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, oh, these lot seem pretty happy. I'm not happy. They seem all right. Seems nice. So I started going to the Christian Union at my university, went to church a few times, bought a Bible, never read it. Didn't really understand that you had to have a relationship. That was a bizarre concept to me. I thought, like, you just go to church and then suddenly your life becomes magical.
Somebody stamps in a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it. So when that didn't make me happy, because why would it, I didn't really think about it until 2020,
Okay.
in the middle of lockdown. And I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And they sent me like a list of treatments that you can have, a list of therapies and things like that. And I was reading through, and none of them, all of them, I was like, oh, done that one. No, that one doesn't work either. No. And there was something in me that just sort of said, you need to read your Bible. But I didn't, I only had a children's Bible, like illustrated. So I was too embarrassed to like talk to anyone about this because I don't want to be the Jesus freak. So I downloaded a Bible and read it solidly for 6 months. Like I didn't watch TV or anything. All I did was hike and read my Bible.
Wow.
Lockdown.
Sounds like you.
A little bit, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah, my ears on. You waiting for me? Oh.
Well, you look like you were about to say
Yeah,
something of great import.
But I can't see you from here, and you just keep diving in. So, yeah, that's cool. So, just really going to go back to you next side. So, sort of you've talked about you sort of grew up in the family household, but what really, personally to you, what were your attitudes around church? What was the most important to you at that time, and how did that really sort of change in your journey?
Well, it wasn't important at all at the start. It was just something, because it was kind of a family thing, you just went. Like, it was the thing everybody did on a Sunday. You know, the bit after that where you talk about how God changes your life was something that you, I suppose, as a youngster, you never really thought too much about. It's only as you get sort of older and you look back at that and you think that those moments of the people who used to talk to you and talk about God, and it all does stick, but it was always just being, just inputted just little bits, and then as you got to I got to for me, the journey of giving my life to God was more about, it was a real journey. I mean, I started off in church not really being interested in it whatsoever. Moved away, like I said, got married, had a child. That marriage didn't work out. Moved back here, and it ended up being a bit of a rough breakup. So anger and a lot of things get hold of you at that point. I moved into a flat with me and Charlie on our own. The start of it really is Charlie's story, because Charlie was born at 25 weeks, so he was extremely premature. And for me, one of the passions that I have in life is I think for me it's got to be seeing children smiling and happy. That's one of the things I just enjoy the most. I mean, I've got 3 now of the craziest kids in the world, but they are wonderful, and there's nothing better than seeing them smile. So when Charlie was born, it was a massive shock. You know,
Yeah.
you couldn't describe the emotions and the pain, the anger that you go through. If you don't mind, if Steve's got it, I was going to share the picture with you if Steve's got the picture for you to see. It's crazy because that at one point was a lot of pain. Now I get emotional about it, of course I do, but it's more the fact of how thankful you are.
That's amazing, but I think before we get on to the good part, the telling us about that when you did give your life to Jesus, what was your turning point? Because obviously you were sort of maybe a different stage on. What was that turning point where you started to really think that there's something in this?
Yeah.
Before you explored that.
It was a conversation with Nay that happened. I used to spend Saturday nights going up to his house, just spending time talking. He would obviously do his usual, telling me about God and how he could change my life and how much I needed him, and I'd be the opposite of, nah, you're talking rubbish, like, you know what I mean? And then one Saturday night, I was there till quite late, and then the following morning I got up, and what usually happens from now after nights like that is you get a WhatsApp message that you're scrolling through because it's that long to read. And the message really within it just said that he'd been praying, and God had said, how can I find somebody who isn't looking for me? And that switched my whole process thought of, rather than trying to say, he's not real, well, why not go and find out if he is? And that was the bit that started the process of, I mean, it didn't happen quickly, if I'm honest. It was all more sort of your thought process changes, and you start to think, well, okay, what did I do at first? Well, I was always taught about prayer. I was always taught about reading my Bible, which I've never been good at. But you start going down those routes, and that's where it started to change.
So, what about you, Lauren?
So I'd had anxiety since childhood, like crippling anxiety. Like couldn't go to most of my lessons at school because I was having a panic attack, and I've done a lot of therapy, and none of it worked. Not one thing worked, and it was just this endless cycle of being referred for therapy, doing it for a few weeks, and then figuring out it doesn't work and just trying something else and something else and something else. So when I finally had like a name for what was going on, I don't know. I think the thing that makes me anxious is life without God. Like this is the conclusion I've come to now. Because I haven't been magically healed. Like I still have to take meds and I still have to go to therapy. But you wouldn't catch me up here without Jesus. Like not a chance. You know, I wouldn't have even walked in on that first day.
Yeah, because you sent me a bunch of stuff when we were chatting yesterday. Like, you were trying to, so you talk about therapy and stuff like that. Lifestyle-wise, you were trying to kind of fill that up with all kinds of things. And
Everything. Drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever. I was, trying to fill that void that I had in my life. And none of it works. Just heads up.
See, and you ended up in a place where it was, you know, so we got Si saying, instead of saying, well, how can I prove that God isn't real? I'm gonna actually give this a little bit of a chance and find out if he is, and find out if he's there. And you're getting to a point where kind of you've had this thing in your head that the Christians have got it all sorted,
Yeah.
which I hate to tell you, we haven't.
I learned that's not true, unfortunately.
But do you know what I mean? You've got this thing going kind of in your head, and you're like, kind of like, this is where I'm going to, and actually, there's this kind of God thread running through that you're kind of like journeying towards. So it's kind of interesting in a way that you've kind of both started at a church kind of thing at some point, but then kind of very different stories through. So do you want to tell us then kind of your story and kind of, I know, kind of bits of it and stuff like that, and it's got some interesting kind of...
Yeah, well, I mean, we've started with some of it already, but I think it really started so much when I met my now wife. Yeah. My wonderful, beautiful wife. Sorry, did I say that right? Did I miss bits out? She took me down to Hillsong in London. She spent a bit of time down there, living down there and attending the church. And the church was the reason, really, why she moved down there. And I walked into church one morning, into Hillsong, London. And it's in a theatre. And you walk in and there's lights set up. There's a big screen like we have here that says welcome home. Now, I was used to hymns, be quiet, sit down, stand up when you're told to, don't wear your cap because God can't see you under your cap, you know, that sort of thing. and when you go into that, different, obviously it's been 10, 12 years since I stepped in a church. So then to be in front of that, and the worship team came out, and then all of a sudden they start, and it's all like, and I was like, my nan's not going to be happy with this, with me being here. But then, like, Ellen said something to me afterwards when we were talking about it, that she said that the pastor at the church had said to her, and it was that what they'd done was, is the method changes, but the word doesn't. And I think that, through the years that have passed now, is so more relevant to everything that we do in church, that you have to adapt things to what's going on today, but the message never changes.
Yeah.
And that was a real sort of eye-opener for me, because it was something completely different. It was all, you know, big beats in music, and you know, I love a good beat in a tune, so it got me straight away. But then, obviously, well, what was going on in my life and going through custody battles and divorce and everything like that, life just still wasn't, you know, there was still too much anger in it, and, you know, bitterness towards people and things like that. And when that conversation happened with Nay, you know, not long afterwards, I'd been to Big Church Day Out. There was little things that happened in between, but I was sat in the flat in my flat on my own. And my nan had given me a Bible. And now, at this moment, I'm not a Christian. You know, this is something that I'm just looking into, let's say. And you hear the stories where everybody say that they put the Bible down and the Bible opens and you see there's a verse that pops out to you. Crazy enough, I'm sat there, I put my Bible down and I open up my Bible and just turn to it and a verse pops out, which was Psalm 142, verse 7. And the psalm says, "Free my soul from this prison." So, there you go. So I can praise your name. And for me, it was more a sort of like a circumstance moment. That's exactly where I was.
Yeah.
And I feel now that it was God looking back saying, if you commit your life to me, I'll free you, and then you'll praise my name. And that's how it felt.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So now I think we just sort of perfectly come up to the exciting bit, which I love to hear these stories. So, what actually can you remember of that actual moment, both of you, when you sort of you did actually commit your lives to God? You know, where was it? Who was with you? You know, just as much as you want to share with that moment. To be ace.
Your story is much better than mine, so I'll go quickly.
Them all good.
They're all good.
I think I'd been reading my Bible for a few weeks over the summer, camping a lot, hiking a lot, and I think the moment I really felt God's presence in my life was when I was sat reading my Bible on top of the Malvern Hills, and I think that was the moment. Like I came down from there, and I was like, "That's it now. We can't go back. It's a bit late now." There wasn't like a specific like verse, I guess. I mean, I've always resonated with Matthew 17:20, but other than that, that's it really.
Cool.
That was my, go on.
So it was that
Give us your
process
hallelujah
through, and is that process through, and in that journey going, kind of, I want to know this more, and it's interesting sometimes, isn't it? Like, you know, a lot of people will have a moment where they say that was the moment of my journey. But I know for some people, kind of, it is that you journey into something, then all of a sudden it's kind of like, this is my reality now. This is my journey, me being with God in this moment and walking with Him and deciding to walk after Him. That's become
Yeah, it always felt like I could back out before that moment. Like, oh, it's just something I'm like looking into, like it, you know. And there was something like I was just like, that's it now, decision made. Let's see where this goes.
I think that's like brilliant there, and I think just kind of you were saying that, John, as well. Si touched on it, and that's why I think testimonies are so powerful, because I think it shows that everybody's journey is different, and the relationship is still the same, but the journey is different. And like you know, like you saw, I grew up with that. I became a Christian I'm not trying to take over at Spring Harvest when I was about 14. And, you know, a lot of people say they have these amazing moments. Mine really wasn't. And I remember talking to John several times and said, but am I really sort of Christian? And he said, did you pray the prayer? Did you mean it? Yes. I said, then you are. And it took me a while to take hold of that truth and that promise, because I know a lot of people that do, events or somewhere, and they say this has been this amazing, powerful moment. But for me, it was that really steady, sort of progress.
Well, that was kind of the same for me, because, like I say, we went to Big Church Day Out, which was amazing. I'd never been before. To see so many people together and what was going on was wonderful. And they obviously at the end of the altar call, and it's in your mind, of course it is, but you never feel comfortable with that. It's never that moment never really got to me. It was always there, but never. You never wanted to take that step and take it. For me, there was moments leading up to it, which Arne loves this part of the story, because he says it can only happen to me. Because that moment when I said I was in the flat and had my Bible open and the verse popped up, it literally happened in like a 2-minute scenario. Straight at that moment, everybody, when they're a kid, everybody does. You can all raise your hands because everybody had them. You had a hero. So my hero when I was a kid was Superman. I used to love Christopher Reeve, Superman. I wanted to be Superman. I wanted to fly like Superman. All the rest of it. And it was on the telly. And at the moment when that verse popped up, there's a moment in the movie where Superman is in his crystal castle, whatever you want to call it, and he's talking to his dad, who's a spirit. And in that, there's something that he says. I can't quite remember exactly what it is, but it goes along the lines of, I know you've got a lot of questions, and together we will answer them. And I ain't being funny, but when God starts to use Superman to try and save your life,
Incredible.
it's time to put your underpants outside your trousers and run with it. Do you know what I mean?
Incredible.
Brilliant.
We're not doing that, by the way.
It's your Christmas fancy dress. That's what it is this year.
Yeah, we haven't told you yet, Chris, but we've got plans. For that.
No, don't put ideas in his head for next Christmas. No.
But yeah, then there was a moment where during some of the battles that were going on with Court, with Charlie, one of the things that it pinned down to was that we needed to know what school Charlie was going into, which would be a big help in what the case was all about. And I remember having a bit of at work, needing to go outside, and outside where I used to work, there was a big war there. I used to go around and they'd all be sat there having a fag. And there was nobody there when I walked round, and I stood there and I thought, right, okay, use prayer. God, just tell me or instruct me on what I need to do because I'm struggling with it. And what I can only describe as, I felt like God spoke to me at that moment, and what he said was, have faith in me. But it was the way I felt. It was like I could hear it, but it was inside me, it was around me, it took, those few words took over that moment like you just wouldn't believe. And again, that was another moment where you move on to the, are you real? You know, is this what it feels like? Is this what everybody talks about in that sort of moment?
Did you go through the thing that I went through of like, am I actually losing it?
Yeah. Yeah. Because all the things that everybody had talked about in your life was suddenly happening.
Yeah.
And that was because I suppose you were starting to believe.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, isn't it? That's what it was all about. And really, the moment that it came down to me giving my life to God was I was at work. I was getting back into the mode of being really angry, really upset. You know, life was starting to take over with everything that was going on again. And I just felt that day that I didn't want to be at work. I didn't want to be around anybody, really. It was just... And the girl, the manager there, she could see that something was going on, and she just said to me, she said, look, I know what's going on in your life. She says, just go home, just go and have the afternoon. And I found myself getting in the car, getting to my nan and granddad's, who I said my nan and granddad were a big influence, as you now appreciate in your life for those moments. And I walked through the door, I said, I can't prove he's not real anymore, and simply said, I'm ready. Wow. And in the three of us, in a nan and granddad sandwich, I prayed the prayer and gave my life to God.
Amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. Just clap.
I think sometimes there's that thing, isn't it? And those of us who've made a decision as a Christian, like sometimes kind of you make that decision as that moment. And I think sometimes what people find kind of difficult then is like, I know some people, and when I was a youth pastor and we're doing this, and they're like, I've made a decision, I've given my yes to Jesus, I've made this decision, and, you know, we're a week in, and my bank account still looks like my bank account looked like, and I still have the problems in life that I'm going through, and some people are still idiots. And you know, you go through all this thing, because I think some people have this view, don't they? Like you're saying, like you've got this view. Well, the Christians seem to have it all together. Yeah. Is there a moment in your journey though when it comes in where you're like kind of like, oh, I thought this was all going to be sunshine and roses?
Well, so I had all of lockdown, and it was great because I just got to spend as much time as I could with Jesus, and it was wonderful. And I was talking to my dad about faith, and my dad's faith was growing, and it was just, you know, sharing that time with my grandparents before we lost them, and like that was brilliant. And then I went to university, and I met Tom, And before we'd even...
To be honest, you sounded like that was like, it was all
No,
going
no,
well,
no,
and then I
Tom
met
isn't the-
Tom.
Tom was part of the illusion, unfortunately, where I met Tom and it was like, here's this guy who we're going to talk about marriage and babies before we even go on a first date. Like, this is, okay, life looks great now. I like the way this is going. And then reality hits and the world opened back up and I don't think there was...
Reality has to hit when you're with Tom, because, like, you know, there's...
But I think, like,
I
lived in
love
a
the fact
bubble.
that Tom is like...
He's on his phone right now.
He's so
does not care.
chilled. He's making notes. That's what he's doing.
No, he's
obviously.
not making
He's not
notes.
making notes. He's looking. He is. He's there. Right. Excellent. You know, I love that thing about Tom. That Tom is like. Sometimes you look at Tom, and you think he's the most laid-back person in the world. That life just happens to him. But I love the idea that before you even went to your first date, he went, right. Let's talk about marriage and babies.
No,
And if we're going to go on a date, I need to know that if I can spend the rest of my life with you, this is going to work out. All right.
that's
Okay.
seriously what happened.
I know. That's why I'm like,
I'm not
other
making
people
it up,
don't know Tom like
genuinely.
we know Tom. But yeah, I love Tom is like, yeah, I'm chilled out business. All right,
Yeah.
and that's how it goes.
Yeah, it was all a bit weird. But no, life happened, university happened, it all got a bit difficult. I went back to work.
In the
and I
middle
was
of the
in the middle of a
pandemic,
pandemic.
student nurse, frontline COVID ward.
And saw some really horrific things. And I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, so God's not going to make my life easy, but he makes it easier. Knowing him makes it easier, but it's never going to be easy.
Yeah.
You know?
I think for me, it was learning to, you get those clarity moments where you think in a moment where there's struggle or there's something going on, that you've been taught over the years that you put everything to God first. And I think that when you start to realise that works, it's the moment where reality hits.
Yeah.
Can I just, young adults are being really naughty in the corner, making eyes at me and asking me to please move size mic up. But it's all I can concentrate on. So I just wanted to out them in the way that they're
Just
making
there.
me...
Is that better?
Excellent.
Should we talk like this? Oh, Malachi, put me back up. I liked that.
You could just what you could keep doing if you want to keep Malachi busy is you could just keep talking like this. And then go like this again. And then he's not pleased with me. Anyway, so some people in the room like are on this journey, and maybe they've not got to that point where they've said, yeah, okay, I'm all in. I'm going to say yes. I want to be a follower of Jesus. I'm hearing everything about who this Jesus guy is, that he died for me, that I can have this life that is connected in to Father God. But I'm not quite sure yet. What would you say to people who are on that journey? What's your bit of advice for someone who's kind of in that place and they're thinking, I'm kind of coming to church, I'm hanging out, but I want to go further in this.
I think the biggest thing that you realise when you make that commitment is how life-changing it is. Like, I don't think you quite understand when you go in, when you're living life normally, that you think's ticking over nicely. You don't understand the power that God has and what he can do to your life. And I think I don't really want to sit here like my Nan and Grandad used to do and preach that moment, but it's always what there's an expectation. I think when you're in that moment, there's an expectation that this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and I tell you, it doesn't. But what it does do is it's like almost like a teaching, and it teaches you that God's got, love, and if you put things to him, that he can change lives. And it's so true. It's my life is so different now to what it used to be, and yeah.
Did people around you guys start? Lauren, you're in like a student environment. You're in your student flat in Birmingham. Like, did people start to notice that there's something different? And what did they think?
So I moved into the flat as a Christian.
Yeah.
So that was that. My flatmates have only ever known me as a churchgoer, but I think my best friend, who we've done life together, we've done chaotic things together, and has always been my partner in crime. She she found it completely bizarre. She thought I'd actually lost it. She was really concerned about me because suddenly all I was talking about is Jesus. And then a couple months ago, we're here on a Saturday night and I get a text. Lauren, I want to go to church. How do I do that? And me and
Wow.
John had a little dance in the car park and we prayed over her. And so she's gone from thinking that I'm completely nuts to, if anything, being more churchy than me.
I love that. More churchy.
She is more churchy, by
Cool.
far. Yeah.
Amazing. So, Si, for yourself, like you talk about like football and stuff and work. What was the kind of reaction, kind of like to you, kind of?
I wouldn't have said that it's been too different. I mean, at work, you have moments, because I work for my auntie and uncle, and they're both Christians. You have moments where you're talking about church, and I don't know, for me, it's been a little bit that more people have been just accepting that Simon's a Christian. You know, there's no...
Yeah.
I think the difference here for me, though, is that a lot of people here, I spent a lot of time not around here, so a lot of my life lived was away from everybody and family and people I knew here, so, you know, they don't know the things I used to get up to. And then coming back here, then became a Christian, it kind of just became the norm, if you know what I mean. Football's a bit of a different thing, I suppose, in a way, because when back in the day, when I was a bit younger and a bit quicker, I wasn't a Christian. Simon was fighting, swearing, kicking off wherever he could, because that's the way he played. And now going back to playing football with you guys has been a little bit different, because your mindset's got to be different, and now and again you find yourself wanting to just let somebody know how you feel.
Oh,
You can't quite do it in that manner anymore. So, but yeah, you know, praying before the matches has been for me brilliant, because I've never done that before in a football match. So that's been wonderful. So yeah.
Yeah, that's been cool. Me and Chris were part of Living Hope Church Football Club, Living Hope, that's based on Russell's Hall Estate, and kind of like a bunch of these guys have kind of joined in that, and that's been a huge kind of like transformation in that team, to see guys who are Christians, who love God, who go to church, and I think kind of like we're kind of taking over the team in a way, because the Living Hope had just got like the club secretary. He was the only one from the church. Stu had been there for a while, and it has kind of like that coming in has been brilliant, and that kind of, there is a different vibe to the team. And
shall I tell me Jake's story?
Go on.
So there's a young lad who plays in the football team who's 16 years old, Jake. Lovely kid. And he came to join us a few games into the season, and Steve, who runs the team, was a little bit nervous about him coming, wasn't he? He's a bit of a naughty kid from what we heard, gets into a bit of trouble, blah, blah, blah. And he started playing with us, and he's ended up playing a lot for us, and he's a good little player. And then we had a night where we had a get-together, didn't we, before Christmas? And not to go into too much detail, but his parents were there. And his dad called me over, and he said, I was saying bye to Steve at the time, so I was going, and Steve introduced me to them, and he said, "This is Simon." And his dad looked at me and he said, I can't tell you the influence that you've had over Jake's life. He said, the talking to him, the encouragement, he said, and he's turned into a different kid.
Wow.
And that's amazing, isn't it? Because you don't even know that you're doing it in one sense, because all I was doing was shouting at him on a football pitch. But, you know, clearly the difference in me is reflecting and having a difference in others, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, fantastic. That is amazing, isn't it? And sometimes it is just being obedient, doing what going to the places God's telling us to go to, you know, in then kind of being there and carrying God into those situations where we make a difference. We'll just kind of go on. Were you going to say something?
I was, but I didn't know how long we got left to,
I'm not sure. We started late.
I know. So, but
I mean, you're comfortable with being late. It's kind of who you are.
can we not go on talking about Tom again? I quite enjoyed that. the deflection off me. So I was slightly on time.
We can make fun of Tom if you want.
At team prayer before you. I mean, I was late, but you didn't know that until
No.
just
We
now.
were also late though. Me and Ruth didn't realise what time it was.
Right, anyway, what were you going to say?
Well, it depends on how long you're going to.
Well, it depends on what you're going to ask. I mean, we might as
I
well go
wasn't
and
going to
ask
ask
it.
anything. The point it was just going to make is that this is why I love testimony, because it's about sharing and encouragement. And whenever, I speak, I try and share stuff from my own life because, it doesn't bother me. And if I can help encourage somebody to show them, that God is still there, or, have that effect, and that, that's what I want, that's amazing. And I think, if you can speak to, I'm surprised that, you haven't got me up here, but I have sort of shared it quite a few times in small snippets. But yeah, so all I was going to say, if you are coming slightly towards the end, no, I've put that in your head now, damn it, is that what would be the one takeaway that you would maybe share about your journey to maybe give encouragement to others if they're thinking, that sounds a little bit like my journey, and we're all human. We have these similar sort of doubts as we're going through this process, and everyone's journey is different. So what would be just your takeaway things to maybe encourage?
I got to a point where I literally why not? I've tried everything else. Why not? That was genuinely what went through my head. It was well, it's a bit weird, but we'll give it a go.
Cool, and you're a big fan, actually. You're a big fan of the YouVersion Bible app.
I am now, yeah.
Yeah?
But I wasn't at the start.
No. For people who don't know, what is that? How does it work?
It is a Bible app. So you can have the Bible on your phone, but they also do, what do you call them? Plans. Bible
Reading plans.
Reading plans. Where it will give you a little snippet of wisdom and then a Bible verse. So at the minute I'm doing the Bible in a year, which is taking me much longer than a year. But I think me and Tom have done every single one on relationships and preparing for marriage that they've written. I think I discovered a new one, much to Tom's heartbreak. Oh, that's incredible.
Where did that come from?
Where did you nick that from? I know where that picture's from.
Has that come from the Sunday Teams chat from Christmas?
Which one of you did that? Mal, Steve?
Brilliant.
That is brilliant. That is
Just
brilliant.
leave that there.
I've got a video somewhere of you and Nath. You sent me a link to you and Nath pretending to be Baywatch lifeguards. We're not going to put that one on.
No, we're not playing that. No, we're not.
We might at some point. There we go. Anything from you, Simon? What would
Yeah,
you-
I think the one thing I think out of my testimony that I think is important for everybody to really take away is don't give up on people. You might have that person, that friend, that work colleague that's asked about it, that doesn't, really seem that interested, but you've spoken to them about it. Nathan never gave up on me. And that's the one that it took one text message of saying, God said to him, how can I find somebody who's not looking for me, to change my whole life. And that's as simple as it can be. It was just a text message, just a thought, just a moment he'd had with God that he wanted to share with me. So I'm saying to everybody, don't give up on those people that are not yet saved.
Yeah, amazing. Let's give him a round of applause. We chatted a bit, Si. You started coming here to PHCC. The story of the invitations is quite funny. Ask Whitney about it. But you came to church. There was one thing you saw. We might say, was it the worship team were great? Was it you had a fantastic welcome?
Not at all.
Was it the pastor was extremely cool and the preaching was brilliant?
No.
Welcome team.
There's one thing that you saw, and I think you said to Nath, you said, I walked in and I saw
Disco ball. Any church that's got a disco ball for me is top of the list.
So there we go. There we go. So he walked in, the deal breaker, they got a disco ball. Yeah, I could just imagine, you having that conversation with
Right,
Helen. I think we found the place we need to be. There's a disco ball. Okay, there we go.
Excellent. Well, disco balls aside, I think possibly we should pray for these guys while they're here.
That sounds like a great idea.
You're going to say you can do that?
No, I'm going to say you can do that, Chris. There you go.
Can we ask Tom to do it?
Who?
Tom.
I don't know where he's gone.
He's disappeared.
He's disappeared.
Otherwise, yes, that would have been great.
There you
It's my greatest entertainment. Bullying Tom.
I'll have to do it then, I suppose.
go. Why don't you stretch out a hand towards these guys who we pray for?
Dear Lord, I thank you so much for Si and Lauren. I thank you so much for giving them the courage to share their journey with you this morning. I thank you for that journey. I thank you for the relationship you have with both of them and the fact that you've brought them right to this moment this morning here with you. And I just pray that you continue to bless them and know in their hearts and hold their hands as you journey with them for the rest of their lives. And I just pray that blessings over them. In your name, amen.
Amen. Amen.